night. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horrornightoasis, where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite all right.
I'm right
finally
there with you.
In my computer room where I can close the door and I don't have to worry about my cats killing each other.
No, we don't need any distractions because we're here to finish off 2024 with our Christmas Murderland marathon. It has finally come to an end, and what a way to end it than with a children's film, almost. It's a weird turn of events, and as we mentioned on last week's show, like, who knows what will come out of the, will show up, and here this one came out, and like, well, that was, let's just do that one, and like, yeah, all right. But it has been quite a marathon. We've had some highs, we've had some disturbing, we've had some lows. And we're here to talk about a film called A Creature Was Stirring, and not to be confused with A Creature Was Stirring, which was released last year around this time. No, this A Creature Was Stirring is sort of honestly, I guess you would say it's sort of a passion project between the director and, well, both the directors. They both direct and star in it. Cliff and Tom, they're the main stars. Cliff plays Santa and Tom plays Zombie Ed. And I think it's just one of those films where it's just making a heartfelt Christmas message to young kids and, teenagers, in a sense, just the wonders and joys of Christmas. By also, there's a zombie apocalypse happening. It's not the very first time that Santa had to go off and face zombies. There's another film that's very low budget, by a Louisville director, George Vanilla, Santa Claus versus the Zombies, and that came out, 2013, somewhere in there. And that's very, heartfelt, just trying to make a kid-friendly, zombie film by also delivering a message of, the Christmas season and bringing joy. And that's what this one felt like as well. Even though there was definitely some constraints in the budget, but they had an interesting idea that they wanted to bring to life, and I give them props for that. And it's a very simple, basic story where Santa, he moved from the North Pole to Garland, Texas, and there was this company that created this virus called the Tetramyelin 2 virus, and it got released, causing a zombie apocalypse throughout the world, or I guess it had to be the world, or just the United States. But he moved to Texas. Mrs. Claus got infected, the reindeers got infected, a bunch of, again, everyone's got infected. And so Santa Claus, basically, it's in like mid-July too. This is all taking place. And so Christmas in July. And so Santa, he's narrating it, and also just like providing the progression of the story, since he's the central character, going about his day-to-day life in Texas. He wakes up, does his normal routine. His house is filled with presents and gifts and Christmas decorations. Um, he has his pet polar bear Cece that he hangs out with occasionally. He lives in the backyard. He uses the pool sometimes. Um, all the while, um, he still has some magic, but not a lot, because his powers are sort of hit or miss. Um, but he basically is, every morning he wakes up, he goes outside to his mailbox to see if he has any letters, and that's where the magic comes into play, because he has a radio, a ham radio, that he tells stories to those that are listening, mainly children. And he still, the magic that he uses is like, if you put your letter somewhere, I'm able to magically get your letter from where you placed it to my mailbox. And so I will get your mail and read it over the ham radio, and then that goes into like him telling stories as the film progresses, and events that unfold. He's also um, found a phone, an iPhone, and where he keeps a conversation with a AI woman, which her name is Caitlin, and she keeps like calling him Eric, which was again the previous name's phone's owner's name. And there's some interesting conversation that leads there, where it's kind of like, in a sense, like child risque stuff like that, where it's like, oh my god, she's about to kiss me. It's very improper, for like a child, but it's kind of played up for laughs. So they do, that thing comes in, all these characters sort of interlocked. There's also Zombie Ed, um, who is not, can talk, um, and he's always, vomiting, green goo out of his mouth while talking, to Santa. And they're just, civil conversations, even though there's like points where Ed starts to have these feelings about eating, because he doesn't eat, and he slowly, over the course of the film, um, starts to get more urges for his hunger, and he's like playing around with saying things like, I want, um, grains, I want to talk to you about trains. So he's playing that up on the whole brains aspect. He has a pet cat at one point. um, and overall, again, it's a very lighthearted, whimsical and wholesome, like, family film. I mean, there's not much in the terms of, say, violence or blood or anything, but there's some, but it's like done tongue in cheek esque. As they said at the beginning of the movie, it's mainly just like a silly movie. That's all it is. It's just silly, fun, sort of family friendly venture with a little bit of, um, again, just a few images of violence. I mean, the zombies are just like up for laughs. There's no biting. There's no eating flesh or anything like that. The only thing you get really is you do get a penis joke. Again, some, you know, love, I wouldn't say it's sexual, but the AI trying to hit on Santa and want to kind of bang Santa in a sense. Um,
Right.
and then they do that whole thing, and then we'll get into that part, but then like the severed head going across the screen, and the green blood, the CGI green blood across the screen. So it's not exactly like full on horror. I mean, there's a few, again, for a zombie film, again, I had fun with it for a zombie film. I've seen worse zombie films, especially like here recently. Like There's a Zombie Games, which was Linnea Quigley's directorial debut that came out. Like, oh, that was a tough watch. Um, if you haven't seen Zombie Games with Linnea Quigley directed, and this one is like whole, family, wholehearted, just like an easy watch, and just like stories, and just like getting you into the spirit and the mood of the holiday season, with some, childlike humor in a sense. It's not. I would say it's like elementary school humor. There's a lot of poop jokes and potty humor. There's like the beginning, like the virus started off and gave everyone diarrhea virus, and like it has a person with like a bunch of toilet paper at the door and farting crazy. Um, so it's very, very lighthearted. Um, it's not something like in your face, and it serves its purpose, and it reaches its message pretty well. And then like the main central plot device of the film is like he gets a letter from a girl called Rika, and she's from like Louisiana or something like that, and like that starts like the main plot of like she wants to meet Santa, and she really wants to, you know, see Santa, and because she believes in him, and like her father doesn't believe in him, and she leaves, gets in a car. This is how whimsical and weird, lighthearted it is. She gets in a car from Louisiana and drives to exactly where Santa is. That's what we're dealing with here. It's very lighthearted, very family oriented, but not in your face. It's not like a Christian, where there's a message. It's very easy to digest. And overall, again, I didn't mind it. It's not the most entertaining, I would say, or just like it's very monotone, because like the Santa is just like, again, the baritone voice, and he's just like narrating the whole film. So your eyes are gonna get heavy trying to watch it. Or maybe it just was for me because I had a long day. But it's just very, like a very personal project for these two to just make something that they're, you know, for their grandchildren or children, just like something for a family member to enjoy during the holidays. Again, I didn't mind it. Um, it served its purpose, and it knew exactly what it wanted to do. It had fun. It had, again, like all the scenes throughout. It's just like it was just having fun with what it wanted to do, and it wasn't overbearing. But Ian, your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
I thought it was a hoot. My phone just went off. Holy crap, that scared the shit out of me. I wasn't even touching my phone. It just went off. Okay, it wasn't even on. Alright, that's weird. Oh, that scared the shit out of me. Okay. The movie was a hoot. I thought it was cute. It was pretty simplistic. Uh, there's not a lot going on. I mean, it turns into a fever dream a lot. Like 1 minute I'll look away, and the next thing I see is Santa dancing with a really bad polar bear guy in a polar bear costume. I mean, I know it's like the same guy who does like the zombie. You could hear the voice in the robot too, but I guess Mrs. Claus also does the AI. I thought that was pretty cool, but I, I don't know. Like it was enjoyable. Like I didn't hate myself for after watching it. I mean, the ending was a little questionable. I didn't. I
Yeah,
don't think they thought that one through enough. But no, it was a pretty all right film. Like yeah, like you said, it was definitely a passion project. Um, I was expecting something different, but I didn't hate what I watched. It is really slow, and nothing really happens other than just him talking on a radio.
yeah. Like I said, it's just like him doing his day to day routine, where like he wakes up, he makes cookies, or he makes a omelet, a gingerbread style omelet. he goes out to a few restaurants around town. He makes bread and cookies, and like there's zombies doing like particular things. Like one's like stuck in chairs while the other one's dead and like trying to eat his brains. And then there's another zombie that's stuck behind the door, and the Santa's trying to pantomime opening the door. Um, and then like at certain points when he's cooking, he reads a story, and it's just like it's very, it's like, again, it's wholesome, it's lighthearted, wholesome, and it's just like there to like get you in the mood, I guess, for a youngster, for Christmas and the
Oh
holiday
yeah.
season. And it just felt like, they played up on it a little bit, with some of the stories. It was kind of interesting. And with and then like what, like she created a virus, and then she made this, and then she had this thing, and then so there's like, just playing up for, like giving put a little edge to it, but not enough to, go as, another film this marathon did, where it just pushed the envelope to the edge and just like, no, we're staying in that lane. So this is like, again, the total opposite to Krampus and the Crazy Cat. So like we I know we didn't start the
Oh yeah.
marathon out on that, but like that was our second one. I mean, if this and this is ending it. It's like the most lighthearted family venture after the hell that
Oh
we had
god,
been.
I know.
It was like, I mean, honestly, it was kind of a nice, like, leisurely pace in a sense because of like the onslaught. Like, if this was like our third one, like, man, that would have been interesting. Double back to back. Like, we got family, and then we got freaking NC-17 here.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah,
No, I mean, I liked it for what it was, but it's definitely like not the strongest in the marathon, and that's kind of saying a lot. It's
yeah.
been
I
an
mean,
interesting.
like we said, I mean, it's very they knew what they wanted to do. Again, I wish they added a little bit more fun with the zombies. I mean, the animated stuff with the giant zombie and what they were doing with it, I mean, that was okay. Um, um, but like, again, there's like another one. Again, I'm going out of the limb here. It's very hard to find. It's called Leftovers, and it's sort of like it's about like sort of racial zombies in a sense, but like it's basically like they're homeless. Like the zombies are like, it's sort of like Fido, but like there's more. And like one guy is like, the zombies just show up. They don't do anything. They just show up at your house, and they're unwanted, and they just want your leftover food. And then like the family slowly kind of like, they didn't like them at first, and then they slowly realize that like, oh, they're not so bad after all, and they sort of accept them. And then like everyone slowly starts to accept them being there, because like they're always a nuisance and they're in the way, like when they're trying to, people are driving, and they're just standing there in the middle of the street, and like they're honking the horns, but they can't do anything because there's a law that you can't kill the zombies anymore. And it's like, it's very lighthearted like that, where like there's like a message in the film of the, and there's like a passion project for a small community as well. And like this one had that same feel, where it's just like, Cliff and Tom just wanted to make a fun little passion project, and probably whoever else was a part of it was like probably related in some way, or just very close acquaintances, and like, yeah, let's do this. And they went out there and they had fun, delivering, it's not a, the message is not in your face. Like he does talk to like God at one point and prays, and just like, like, but also I'm so, like, tell Mrs. Claus I love her. And then there's like parts in there where like, of course, like Santa's like wanting to be faithful even though his wife's passed away. It's like he still doesn't want to change anything because he's still, a good person. And so there's a lot of that in the films. Like I said, it's very wholehearted, and I can't really knock it for what it is. It's like
Yeah.
it has issues. Like, again, I wish they did a little bit more playfulness with the zombies, and just like a few more things here and there. Like they could have made a few more interesting bits with the zombies instead of just being stuck behind a door and one stuck in chairs trying to eat another one. They could have had like more
That was
predicaments
funny.
with the zombies.
Yeah.
Like maybe one's wrapped in Christmas lights or garland, and or just like bring it more festive, instead of just like, like, oh, these zombies are in a restaurant, like they just kind of did that with like Ed only. They only like had him with the predicament with like him wanting to, fight his urge to eat, brains, and like and then like they did the whole thing with like killing the cat and like, oh well, hopefully you can pray and ask for forgiveness and get a new cat. It's just like it's very, very like again Sunday school esque, teachings in a way, but like there's still some humor to it. It's like one of those. It's one of those cool, pastures.
Yeah.
I kind of had
Oh,
that with a teacher. He was a. I don't know if he was a pastor, but he was a. But he went to the church. He was pretty full blown into the church, but he was like a cool teacher. He's like one of those cool Christians, and like you could really crack it up with him for and just go places, and he just you can talk to him back and forth, and he was cool. He's just one of those cool teachers and cool Christians, and that's what I felt like this one is. Like they're sort of the cool Christians. They're not pushing their agenda, but they're just having fun with it.
yeah. I did get a chuckle when Santa told the AI he couldn't sleep. It's just like I can help with that. And he's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, how? And she's like, like pretending to make out with the screen. And I was like, okay, that one was kind of funny. He was like, nope, Santa is definitely can sleep.
Yeah.
I am not struggling.
Yeah, that's like almost as like someone's walking in on your room when you're watching porn. Like, oh, what? No, nothing's wrong here.
I just was like, oh my god, I was like, that's kind of funny. But I had fun with it. You know, if I was a little bit more awake, I think I wouldn't have been felt like it was, you know, as big of a slog fest. But
Yeah, and they could have done like more with the polar bear too. Like he's just like in like 3 scenes, if that. I mean, there's
yeah,
like them lounging in the swimming pool, and just like another like, hey, what's going on? Here's some food, and then like the zombie fight where he gets into the pool and stuff. But like the
that was
giant
weird.
zombie fight. And he's also flossing and doing all kinds of dances. I mean, so they're trying to make it hip for the kids with the flossing in there.
Honestly, for a low budget film like this, it did look nice.
Yeah,
And the audio wasn't bad at all. I think one part it had weird audio, but I think that was just because we were listening to it through the radio. But other than that, like I I was actually kind of surprised, especially
hmm
by if you look at the poster, you don't really it doesn't set you up to think it's going to look as nice as it
yeah, especially with the polar bear. But it works for the
is.
you have it really just again you look at the poster and you're like, oh crap, this is gonna be one of those. It's like it just felt that way, and then you go into it and it's like, oh okay, it's complete. It works for the tone of the film.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I was expecting a Beaster Day, so
Oh yeah.
I was like, this is probably going to be something like Beaster Day. Uh, but eh,
And see,
it is
like I said, I bring it up again because during the giant zombie fight, Santa gets a chainsaw and he does the Leatherface dance, and I was like, all right, that's cool. So that's like a cool, someone's like Santa's doing the Leatherface dance.
the 8-bit thing got was kind. I was like, that was a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just
Again,
trying.
the
I
Plants
get it.
versus Zombies. I think they're just trying to make things for the kids. It's just like
Yeah,
what's hip, and then Plants versus Zombies, flossing, AI, stuff like that. And it just felt like they were just trying to do what's cool, for the youngsters today,
yeah. I
and
mean,
having like an
I
interesting, and trying to again give their message and like Christmas and the season to get you into the spirit, and then throwing some zombie flair in there for those that like zombie films. Like again, I was like, as soon as it said Santa and a polar bear fighting zombies, like, all right, I'm in. As soon as I saw that, like, all right, we found a movie, and because
Yeah.
we were gonna do the wheel again of choosing it. Like, no, this is good, and it just popped up too out of nowhere. So I was like, but I think it's a good one to close it out on because again, after going back on the list, I mean, we've had some ups and downs, and this is definitely one of the better ones. Even though again, it has its issues, but I again, it's not the greatest, but again, it has enough there to stand its on on its own merits.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But Ian, do you have anything to add to the A Creature Was Stirring 2024?
See, that's why I double check. I was even going by that last week. I said I always double check the movies because I almost made the mistake again, which would have been a very interesting review. But no, there's not a whole lot to go into without like just because there's one, nothing really happens. It's kind of one of those movies you just need to experience, and like even with spoilers, like you know. But I don't really think there's much left to like really dive into with this. So
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely just very lighthearted, very family friendly. There's a few sort of pushing the limit for if you're a child. There's some potty humor. The AI, as Ian mentioned, where like she's trying to make out on the phone with Santa. There's some stuff that's like maybe pushing the limit. If it depends on what you allow. If parents are listening, what you allow your children. But it's very lighthearted. It's not nothing like that would. I mean, I'm sure Ian, if your kid was a little older, this would be something you and him would probably just sit down and watch, and you would be all right with it.
yeah,
Like this isn't anything like Gremlins in your face, but again, Gremlins is more that way. Um, it's very lighthearted. It comes across as I mentioned before as a passion project. It gets probably would get you people younger kids in the mood for the holidays, and it does have a message of I assume like belief and hope in the holidays and Santa. So it what it wants to come across and
right,
get across, it does that. Even though the ending, again, non-spoiler stuff, but the ending kind of just like really we're kind of going there, because again we're older, we're adults, we kind of see things differently than they probably didn't expect um, watching it. I mean, even though it's totally you know not portrayed that way, it just comes across that way. And then of course the dad would be upset. Um, but I digress. We're not going to get into that specific area, but it still comes across that way. So you kind of have to take some demerit from it. But it's still not a bad watch if you want to have your kids something to watch next year for the season, or just if they want to watch a flossing panda, polar bear do its thing. Um, it's again, it's lighthearted, it's cheeky, and it's just whimsical and wholesome. So it's definitely one for a family or just younger get together. Um, Again, also if you like zombies, um, like myself, I didn't mind it. There could have been more zombie stuff into it, but I've seen worse, way worse, and this is not one that really done anything. Like I said, it's Ian mentioned. It's just it's you don't hate yourself from watching it. It's not a headache after you watch it. It's just you're just watching Santa Claus be Santa Claus and give good cheer. That's basically it, with interesting situations. So with that, I think we're gonna call it a close, and then what we always do, Ian, is rank the marathon, as we always do when everything comes to an end. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you give your ranks of the films that we reviewed. So go ahead from worst to best.
All right. From worst to best. Granny Krampus is going to sit at number 5. That movie absolutely made me angry. And I think of it and I'm like, I wish they did something different. Um, and then the rest of them got hard to place because they all have their charms, but I'm gonna have to go with Shotgun for number 4, just because like it had some okay moments, but like that movie, other than like, oh yeah, yeah, like that and a couple of little scenes here and there, that movie's, I'm going to forget it by next year, and by next year I mean Wednesday. uh, Number 3, I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna go with a creature just because of this one, uh, tonight's movie,
Mm-hmm.
because it's nothing amazing, but it's also not as bad as some of the others. Um, there's just not a whole lot to it, and while it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just, eh, you know, it was fun in its own way, but I feel like it's a good middle ground. Um, I'm gonna give Cats number 2 just because of how much I laughed at that movie, and even though it's like the most simple film that we've watched this, it's even more simple than A Creature with Story. Yet it was just, oh my god, it was all over the place. Got the whips, the girls getting spanked, the just of sheer absurdity and how big of a mess that movie was. It's just hilarious to me. And while number 1, if I put this with any other holiday movies, it wouldn't even pale in comparison. But in this little marathon, I'm gonna go with Scrooged for number 1, just because it had more of a cohesive story. It knew what it wanted to do. It kind of did it. I wish it did more, but I felt like out of all the movies, like that one tried the hardest to make something like tangible, and I felt like they completed their uh what they set out to do. So give credit where credit's due, but it's not a great film by any means. But that's this was kind of hard to like pick.
Yeah, like I'm still sitting here and I'm listening to your points and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense. But I'm still looking at mine, even after I took the extra time earlier and looked over it. Like I'm still trying to change like the middle 3 because like my 1 and 5 were done automatically, and then I was just sitting. I'm still sitting there trying to figure out because each one like like it can fit in any 2, 3, and 4. You can switch those around with any of the other ones and like it would work. And again, I'm still kind of stumped, but again, My 5 is your 5, Granny Krampus. There's no doubt. That
Oh yeah.
film was just boring. There was the little dance prance thing that she was doing with the cane, the rod, uh, Uncle Krampus, just pointing, doing his best Donald Sutherland while he's opening doors. It's ridiculous. There's no point to anything, and just like it was a sequel that you wouldn't even know about, and you wouldn't care to know about because he changed it up where it doesn't even make sense to the original film that it's trying to be a sequel to, and it's just like everything's just does not work with that film. So that was my number 5, and then again I'm still like I'm stuck there with 2, 3, and 4. Like I'm like literally stumped. But again, I really wanted to like if I'm going by how I wrote this, I had naughty list of Mr. Scrooge at number 4. I'm just gonna go with how I wrote this because I'm not gonna change it because I wrote it down. Um, because it's just a plain Jane slasher. I mean, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, but I've seen a dozen of them, and it just does not. You've seen enough and the same thing over and over like I have. There's just no reason to rank it any higher on the list, in my opinion. Again, it's just my thoughts because I've seen so many. It's the same thing over and over, and like it was fine, but it's just a forgettable thing, and like it's been there, done that. Um, my number 3 was A Creature Was Stirring, but I was gonna change it to number 2. Because I was sitting there going back and forth, and I was like, which one am I going to remember
Yeah.
from the 2 picks? And I was like, I'm probably not going to remember much of A Creature Was Stirring. I'm going to remember the goodwill and the intent that it had, but it doesn't have moments. And I'm all about moments in a film. So that's the reason I put A Creature Was Stirring at number 3. Number 2 was Down a Chimney with a Shotgun because I liked Macho Man Randy Santa. I liked the first doll segment with the moon face thing. I like the later segment with the cannibal, the stupid explosion, and the guy getting run over by the semi because it's ridiculous and it has
Yeah.
moments. And you knew this as soon as we reviewed it. There was no way. But Krampus and the Crazy Cats is number 1. There's no fucking
Oh,
way.
I told you I knew what your 5 and
There's
1 was.
no none my right mind. Like it shouldn't. Like honestly, it's like how we did with a few other marathon choices where like it should have been this one because it's the right thing to do. But I'm sorry, Krampus and the Crazy Cats is an experience, and I've fucking enjoyed every minute of it because it's just so freaking in your face, and it's just like you said, like this was A Creature Was Stirring was like had like those fever dream moments with the panda bear. Like this was just full on fetish fever dream where just like you're just in awe. You're just in this trance of just like like the spiral, and it's just like the Krampus is spanking asses. It's just like constant, and it's on like a metronome, just like ticking back and forth, and it's the whipping of asses of the spanking rods, and it's just like the dialogue is awful. Oh, you like my ass? Yes, I like your ass. I want to f your ass. It's just like the oh my god, it's just like the constant going back and forth on the bridge, and it's just carrying the Krampus meat and the same conversations over and over, and like, oh, it's Krampus Day. Where's Krampus? Krampus, the girls are at the pub. Go to the pub. Oh, I'm gonna get you, girls. Come out so I can spank you. Just like, oh my god, it was just like constant, and it was awful, and I loved it. Like there's just like nothing. It's one of those films where you're just like, yeah, there's there's no way that's not number 1 because again, I love messes of a film, and that was a mess if there ever was one, especially for a Christmas movie. And like I said, it was
Yeah.
like again, as wholehearted and as wholesome as The Creature Was Stirring was, and as it should be, honestly, up there, I just there needed to be a space between Krampus and the Crazy Cats and A Creature Was Stirring. So that's kind of the reasoning why I needed to have like they didn't need to touch each other. But I think that's my ranking. And again, I'm kind of after talking about it, yeah, it makes sense. I'm kind of glad I did that. and didn't change my answers. So I think that's gonna do it, Ian, because this has been one eventful marathon with a lot of. We've had messages, we've had
Yeah.
people just throwing shit at the screen and not knowing what to do, and we've had a lot of spanking
Ugh.
and birthday spanking at that. That was just that review was on my birthday too. It was just like nonsense.
Right.
So, but yeah, like I think that worked, and it was like I said, it was a wild marathon, especially for our Christmas marathons. We never had one like this wild.
No, definitely. Like this was by far the craziest one, simply just of like how different each movie was from each other.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even mean like a little different. Like each single one was like crazier than the next. Oh,
But yeah, that was it's definitely one for the ages and the way to end 2024 because I mean seriously, this is definitely a way to go out, especially with a creature with the most wholehearted film we probably reviewed this year. It's like that's something, especially after Krampus and the Crazy Cats. But nonetheless, Ian, it has been a great year, and
yeah.
we've managed to do a lot with this show, and especially switching over, um, which I think we did last year, but still, just like being able to come on here now and just put out a show weekly and or bi-weekly, when things are happening on both our ends, family stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been a wonderful year, and we had an anniversary. We got to go back and bring the world. It's not delivery; it's demonic. So it's like a lot of things are just like coming back, and we might do that again because that's what I was thinking of like doing for like next year is like redoing some of our older reviews that are lost and just like doing an anniversary watch on them.
Yeah. That'd
That's
be
sort
fun.
of like in the back of my mind because it's like because again we lost a lot of shows in 2017 and 2018 that are gone and a lot of boneyard stuff, but now we have more time to really discuss into detail about some of those films that are lost. So we might sprinkle
Yeah,
some throughout
and
the year and see how that goes out. And of course, always talking about more interesting movies that just come out. That's just like you know no one else is going to touch it.
right.
you know, you know, you're listening to the only show that has Krampus and the Crazy Cats is number one. I'm like only here. But Ian, it's been great, and I hope it comes across everyone else listening. Just the enjoyment we've had over the year, and we appreciate everyone for listening and allowing us, an hour of your time weekly, or if you're marathoning some of the old shows, just catching up. We appreciate it. Um, we have
Yep,
a lot in store for
definitely.
2025. I'm currently working on a very special 2025 beginning of the year episode,
Woo!
and I'll probably be doing that later in the week, hopefully, if everything goes well, and to kick off 2025. So with that, Ian, as always, I have to thank you and thank you again. It's great talking with you, and thanks
Likewise.
everyone for listening. And we will see you next time on Horror Night Oasis in 2025. Happy New Year.
Talk to y'all next year.